The story yesterday that the NFLPA released a list of agents and who they represent of the kids at the combine and coming into the draft did not feature the name Caleb Williams on it. And it appears he is going to enter the combine, at the very least, unrepresented by a league certified agent. What's your reporting on this, Tom?
I would say, Rich, anybody who had kind of done research on Caleb Williams throughout the fall and knew where his head is at would not have been surprised by that. There was never an intention for him to hire an agent, not for a lack of trying by the agent community. But, Caleb Williams is, I think, in a lot of ways emblematic of the modern college athlete, where, remember, he's had NIL deals. He's had, been able to be paid at the college level. He was brought up to be a star quarterback. He's had different people in his life. His dad certainly has been very involved as well. His dad is kind of a disruptor in the business community. And so he has a lot of experience on doing different sorts of things. I don't think that anybody really ever believed Caleb Williams was going to hire an agent. He's not the first quarterback to forgo an agent during the pre-draft process. Lamar Jackson is a recent famous example of it. Certainly, I think that you can make a fair case that there's a lot of different things an agent would do for you besides the contract, which, yes, those are slotted. Those are, you're arguing over offset language and bonus structure and things like that might be relatively minor. There's a lot of other value that a good agent can bring you throughout the course of the process. Caleb's opting not to go that direction. He does have other people involved who are very experienced either on the media relations side or on the legal side of things. So it's not as if Caleb Williams is going through this process and he's going to be sitting at the table crunching a 50-page contract here when it comes down to actually doing the deal. He is going to have help, but he's opting not to have an agent, which, again, I don't think should surprise anybody, but it's one of the many nuances of Caleb Williams as an NFL prospect that teams, like anybody else who's doing something different, are going to be sifting through.
So what all right, let me figure this out here. So discard the conversation. Well, he just doesn't want to pay 3% to somebody when he feels he's going to be number one overall, and he's got other people who will help with offset language and things of that nature. When you say disruptor, are you saying essentially he's doing this just to do because it's different? He doesn't want to conform. I kind of don't understand that, Tom.
Well, again, I was referring to his dad being sort of a disruptor in the business community. His dad has, for a good chunk of Caleb's life, been, a significant force in terms of, not so much, the teaching of football, but just everything else. It's guiding Caleb's career from Oklahoma to USC and now into the NFL. Again, there's other people that are involved in this process. I think that for Caleb, and again, for a lot of young athletes coming up, Rich, they're not the guys coming up from 20 years ago. They're not the ones who lived in a world where if you transferred, you had to sit out, or a world where if you got any money to play the game, it was in an envelope that was glad handed you by a booster after the game. I mean, this is, college football is now pro football. And so guys are coming in with a completely different viewpoint of, well, I operated this way in college. Why would I have to operate differently in the NFL? Then on top of that, the other factor with Caleb Williams is, he's that rare prospect that maybe doesn't need to play the game like some other people. Again, there are plenty of NFL people, and I've got text messages from them, who don't like anything that's different, certainly not with the top prospect, and they're going to have these kind of predisposed opinions about anybody who does not follow the normal process. But, let's be honest, no matter what Caleb Williams says or does in the coming couple of months here, he's probably still going number one. And there's a limited number of teams, even if the Bears were willing to move, that would be able to move up into that spot. So do you need to play ball with every single team? I mean, last year, Bryce Young canceled his visits late in the process. For years, some of the big agencies didn't have their quarterbacks throw at the combine. These are not unusual that certain quarterback prospects do things differently. I think the difference with Caleb is he's been in such a spotlight for so long. He is viewed as one of those, again, opinions vary among different scouts and coaches, but he's viewed as one of those can't miss types of prospects here. There is an intense spotlight on him, and anything he does throughout the course of the process that is not the way that other quarterbacks have done it is going to be picked apart.
Well, then where does maybe trying to influence who chooses him fall into that? right? Normally that's where an agent might be able to work behind the scenes and try and influence. What if he doesn't want to go to Chicago? Because if you're saying that, you know, the father's a disruptor and he's the one who basically came out and told, he told GQ in September, hey, might be better off in this day and age for a player to go undrafted because he could choose wherever he wants to go. Like the draft is kind of, you know, anti-player in that regard.
And that's an argument you can make too.
Right.
I mean,
so that's the question: is what's your tea leaf reading of how Williams is going to approach the draft process based on just the small pieces of information we're trying to pull from right now?
I would say at this point, Rich, and we're 2 months and like 4 days out from the NFL draft, 2 months and 2 days, somewhere around there. There's been no communication from Caleb Williams and his team to clubs that I want to go to X or I'm going to refuse to go to Y. That has not happened. That could still happen throughout the course of the process. It's like any player could try to manipulate the process in that regard. I mean, there's different circumstances through the years of agents, you know, actively trying not to get their clients drafted by certain teams or not get drafted at all because they felt like it was better off if they, you know, didn't end up doing that. But it's normally not the number one pick. You're talking about John Elway. You're talking about Eli Manning. You're talking about a few occasions through history. Caleb Williams quite possibly would have the power to try to engineer something like that. What you're referring to too, Rich, I think is some of the complications when you don't have a certified agent because, you know, you don't want to Ken Francis yourself. If you remember the name Ken Francis,
yes,
he was
from Lamar,
the inventor of the entire gym, who was also working with Lamar Jackson at various points had reached out to teams trying to get them to make an offer sheet. The NFL sent a memo to all the teams saying, hey, you can't talk to this guy, Ken Francis, the Florida man who invented this gym in a suitcase and is trying to negotiate a $50 million a year deal for Lamar. You can't talk to him. It would be the same thing. Now, your parents are different because remember, Lamar's mom was a big factor in it. So hypothetically, if Caleb wanted his dad to call around to teams, that's more of a gray area, and it's probably permissible. But again, that has not happened at this point. Carl Williams is not operating like that. It doesn't mean that something can't evolve over the next couple of months here. But I would anticipate that Caleb Williams will be in Indianapolis next week, and teams will have an opportunity to have him answer some of those questions himself.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.